Hey church, Pastor Brian here. I hope you're having a great day, and I hope you've enjoyed so far the journey that we've been going through with the Acts of the Apostles. One thing that I believe should be apparent as we're journeying through is that God changes people. Now we've just read through Paul's conversion story on Sunday, and I love the story because here's a man who's in the middle of a mass persecution against Christianity when God stops him right in his tracks. The risen Christ speaks to him, and Paul's guided to new life. And we have a man who was an enemy of the church, and then becomes one of God's biggest instruments for spreading the gospel to the Gentiles. We talked about change. Paul's a perfect example of no one being too far from God's grace that God can't change them. We've seen other great examples of change so far. We've seen whole communities give their lives to Christ and be baptized. We've seen people come together and pool their resources to help the poor in the community. We've seen whole communities come together, breaking bread together, praying together, so that they can grow closer to God as they grow closer to one another. To me, this is the church. This is what it's all about. And as we're exploring Acts, I want you to be able to see that Acts is not just some boring history book that just tells about how the church was formed, but it actually contains some pretty exciting stories of transformation, of new life. Now, we've seen a lot of varieties, as I've just mentioned, of change, but we also have stories of change among us here in our congregation. So as we're going through this, I want you to think about, how has God transformed you? How does God continue to transform you? And how have you opened yourself up to God's transforming power? And as we go through this in the coming weeks, I want to be able to create space where we share these stories with one another. Now, there are many ways that we can experience the grace of God and allow that amazing love and transforming power to work through us. John Wesley, who's one of the founders of Methodism, taught that, of course, we can't earn God's grace, but that we can and should experience it through the means of grace. The means of grace are the ways that God works through us, strengthening our faith and molding us into the people that God created us to be. So what are these means of grace? Well, they could be split into two categories, the works of piety and the works of mercy. And each category has things that we can do by ourselves and things that we can do as a community, as a church. Works of piety, things you could do would just include reading and meditating and studying on the scriptures, praying, fasting, regularly attending worship, living a healthy life, sharing your life in faith with others. Works of piety that we can do together include regularly sharing in the sacraments of baptism and Holy Communion. And we offer communion once a month, on the first Sunday of the month, but we also offer it weekly. Every Wednesday night, 7 p.m. at the chapel in the church, we have prayer service. So there's a group of us who come together in prayer, and then we also share the sacrament of Holy Communion. Another communal work of piety would include Christian conferencing. That is, being essentially in a small group or being accountable to one another. We have a small group that started up in the parsonage on Monday nights, 7 p.m. We're hoping to grow this group so that we can eventually splinter it off and create several small groups around the church and in the community. Another communal practice, Bible study. We have a Bible study Sunday mornings at 10 a.m. We also have a women's Bible study 3 p.m. at the church on Monday afternoons. Alicia Wilsey heads both of those up, and I would invite any and all to come out. So then we have works of mercy, and these include individual practices of doing good works, random acts of kindness, if you will, visiting the sick, visiting those in prison, feeding the hungry, and giving generously to the needs of others. Works of mercy that we can do together would include seeking justice, ending oppression and discrimination. For instance, Wesley, in his day, challenged Methodists to end slavery. We know that slavery still exists in many forms throughout the world and is still a problem that the church is actively involved in. Another communal practice is addressing the needs of the poor. So any and all of these things our congregation is called to take part in together. Now we're going to take a break from Acts for the season of Advent, which begins quite quickly, November 29th. And during Advent, we anticipate the second coming of Christ, while we also prepare to celebrate the first coming at Christmas. During Advent, what I want us to do is consider how God is working through us as we draw closer to God. Are you involved in any of the means of grace I just mentioned? Are any of them new to you? During this time, I'd encourage you to adopt a new means and allow God to change you in a new way. Here is a time like Lent where we as a church pause. We reflect on what God has done. We take stock of our lives. We find refuge from the noise of the world. And we draw closer to God, the God who created us, who loves us, and who sustains us. So I encourage you, draw upon these means of grace this Advent season. I'll include a link from umc.org below this as I post it. And may God give you peace today. May you be people of God's peace today. And may God continue to mold you and shape you into a more Christ-like person. May the Holy Spirit fill you to overflowing today. God bless.